be starting our first session after lunch. This session is titled In a Nutshell, the fourth edition. I would like to call our chairpersons for this event, Dr. Giridhar Gyani, Director General in the Association of Healthcare Providers India, and Dr. K.K. Kalra, CEO of NABH.
We are soon starting the discussion on the fourth edition. Meanwhile, the lab parallel session has commenced. Those of you from the lab who are here, they're requested to go back to their hall because the sessions are going to start now on the laboratory side. Now, we got Dr. Kalra here. Okay, fine.
Good afternoon. It's a privilege, to be here on the stage, especially to present the fourth edition. Thank the organizers, thank Dr. Alex, thank the entire team, for giving us this opportunity. And it's a great honor to, be here in front of two of the quality gurus and probably my mentor as far as quality is concerned, Dr. Gyani as well as Dr. Kalra, to be here and present this fourth edition. As you know, there was a first edition when the whole thing was started. As per the ISQA requirement, every 3 years or 4 years, there has to be a change in the edition, which keeps changing as per the ISQA requirement. So according to that, this was a requirement. So this time, as we all know, quality was a journey. So it was a journey for the entire NABH, for the TC, and for the secretariat. So we ensured, and this time Dr. Kalra was every aspect what we did, he was ensuring that everything went as per the textbook. So we have also had a lot of learning in the first 3 editions. And with this, we started with a journey on 4th edition. So the revision on 4th edition. Just for a small this venue has a lot of nostalgia. 2003-04, this is the first time when I met Dr. Gyani, it was here, and Sir had pointed out that we need to have some standard on quality on healthcare. So this venue, maybe about 12 or 13 years back, was the place where quality in healthcare was originated. So I just wanted to bring that. And many of you would know I'm a little fond of history, in a few things. So 27th of June 2005 was the first meeting ever held of NABH. That was in India Habitat Center in New Delhi, where Dr. Gyani was there and a few of our original TC members were there. And then the now first edition came out in 2005 February. Sorry, it's 2006 February. It was a mistake. And then in the last 1 decade, 4 editions have come out in more than 500 hospitals. So it's, even by any stretch of imagination, it's a long journey as far as NABH has undergone. Now coming straight to the 4th edition, when we started, we said that, we'll have a destination 4th edition where we will set what should we do. One was we said that we'll review the international and national literature before we proceed further. Important is to take feedback from various stakeholders. So much before we started, we had sent this thing to all the assessors and all the hospitals to give their feedbacks. Analysis of the common NCs. So yesterday you saw the most common non-conformance, and we said why it happened. Was there a problem in the standard itself, or was there a problem in difficulty in implementation, or was that simply they were not implementing? So when it was the first two questions, then we thought we should look into that. Then the next aspect was we compiled all the feedbacks, then we had deliberated within the TC. So the first meeting of this was not looking at the standard. First meeting we said, how are we going to address? So as I said, this was a learning for us. Previously we used to start with chapter 1, go ahead, chapter 2. So here we had spent more than a day just to deliberate how are we going to go ahead and what are the methodologies which we are going to use this. After this, we had prepared the draft standards, taking everything into consideration. So what we also did is we gave chapter champions. Each chapter there was a champion who will own that chapter. Along with that, there were two sets of people. One will look at the feedbacks, one will look at non-conformances. So we went standard by standard, objective element by objective element, and said whether there was a clarity. We had, I think Basil would also present that. Then we divided them into, if we are changing, we divided into 7 or 8 categories. Whether you are going to lift the bar, whether you are going to bring in more clarity, whether this is obsolete. Sometimes some of the things which we wrote in the first edition probably is a practice now. So it is imbibed into our DNA, maybe few of them, it's a handful of them, or whether it is implied in some other standard, or whether it was a duplication. So we had divided any change which we want to make into these 5 or 6 categories, then we made the change. So after taking all the feedbacks, the draft standards were prepared. After preparing the draft standards, like we have done in the past, see, even the first edition, Dr. Gyanija sir would remember, after we finished that, we sent to 30 stakeholders in various forms. Whether it is facility means we sent to some experts in facility, HR we sent someone in HR, first 5 chapters we sent to clinicians. So 30 people we had sent, taken their feedback. So this time we went one step forward. We had also put, meaning even the previous one we had done that. The third edition also was put in the public domain, but this time this was also put for 3 weeks in the public domain. And along with that, we also held a few meetings with all the chairs and all the other committee members to deliberate what could be tough, what could be difficult to implement, or what is only on books it is there, and so on and so forth. So after all this was done, then we had done the final standard, and which was after this, we made the final standard, we took it to the board. We also presented to the board. Dr. Kalra was there, sir, presented to the board on these are the salient features, changes are being made, and then this was passed by the board, and this has been sent to ISQA. And for your information, the ISQA also has given some few suggestions as per the standards, which has all been addressed, and that's the standard which you have in front of you. If there are any more minor modifications, that would be this thing. But overall, this was the process which was adopted by the technical committee on drafting the 4th standard. So as we said, these were the few things which we had done, whether you need to raise the bar or remove the ambiguity or to bring in more clarity, or sometimes we had. Plan of care is one important aspect where every one of us had a problem. One is understanding, 2 is implementing, 3rd is make the clinicians and the doctor understand and implement. But unfortunately, this is a ISQA requirement. So even in that, we looked at how best we can address without getting into difficult aspects. So as probably Dr. Basil will say, we have made it that we can't go away with that, but we need to do it, but how easy it could be made. Methodology, this is what we went through, had already gone through. Now, so few important things in the new standards. Legal. There was a lot, see what happened is, many a times the assessor will go, 1/3 of the time is spent is only on legal and statutory. See, while we looked at, we have to sit back and see what is the major intent of an accreditation. It is to improve quality of care and to bring in clinical excellence. Legal, is it important? Yes, it is important. It is mandatory. It is a requirement of the law of the land. Now, are we regulators or are we accreditors? Are we doing a due diligence or are we doing a sampling? So these are the questions we put forward. Then based on a few answers, we said, look, we have to look at a few things. We cannot say that we will not look at regulations. There are a few accreditation bodies which doesn't look at regulations. We need the hospital to follow the law of the land, but at the same time, we cannot be the regulators. So what happens, for example, typically is that someone would know the law in depth. He would say electrical license, so many inspections should have happened. If this has not happened, even the electrical, the inspector would not have been bothered, but he may go so deep into it. On the other hand, someone might not have even looked at a fire license or this thing. So it all depends on how much knowledge that assessor has, how much interest he has. So there was a scope for non-uniformity. So we thought this is something which we should address. So what has been done is 4 things. One, the organization's unit head or the head of the organization will have to give an undertaking to the NABH that he or she is aware of everything and compliant with all the regulatory requirements. Second, what NABH would look at is if there is an overarching license. Suppose if it is in a corporation for the hospital to function, say a Clinical Establishment Act or a corporation license, so which allows a hospital to function. Now, if that has been given, it is a duty of that organization to have checked whether your fire is in place, whether your other things are in place. But after that, next is we have listed out clinically relevant acts, maybe the PCP&DT Act, maybe the biomedical waste. Those we have to look at. So the advantages is you're making it simplified, and the assessor spends more time in assessing clinical areas and clinically relevant things rather than going into where you can find a fault. As Sanjeev pointed out, always we say it is a fact finding, not a fault finding. But many a times when we wear the cap of an assessor, you think, okay, yes, I'm going to go there and find, fault. So putting this, we said we have made it simplified. Fire is one important aspect. So many of them, because of various reasons, the fire department has not itself come and asked for a license or for a regulation. So what we have done is, yes, you should have a fire license. If you are not having a fire license, if that law of the land does not require you to have that, at least there should be a third-party assessment, and you should have been compliant with whatever the third-party assessment has done. So at the same time, the following areas are strengthened. The mechanism to see whether your licenses are in place or updated, that is strengthened. The accountability of on the top management regarding licenses has been strengthened. And then the third important aspect is now fire training. Fire things is in place. Suppose you have a license, but your training is improper, that is considered a bigger non-conformance than say the fire department says that it's an old building, we can't give an NOC, say they give a fire advisory and you compile with that, and you have shown proof that you have been compliant with those requirements and your training is perfect, then there is, we would say that that is fine. So those areas has been given a stress. Green concept, green hospitals, you have already heard a lot. There has been a mention on that. Stress on promotion, prevention and education aspect. Inclusion of national programs and some of wherever requirements, some international best practices have been taken. And major focus has been on systems and processes. Yes, outcomes have also been given importance, but as we know, unless your systems and processes are in place, your outcomes may not always be uniform. And of course, as I said, is the ISQA requirement. Few things we called experts. We took experts from other fields, end-of-life care. Even there are lot of debates. But at the same time, you can't do anything against the law. So we had taken experts from elsewhere for end-of-life care, certain HR requirements, especially nursing requirements. You could see that the nursing requirements has been put up in the website. Focus on outcome-based indicators. We have taken a few outcome-based indicators, setting patient safety goals. Then some difficult things has been introduced. Now the idea is like this. Now bold, capital letters for a prescription. Now the government itself wants to bring something on that. The idea is that let us start. As I think Sanjeev pointed out in the morning, maybe some of them we may not have 100%, maybe not even 10%. But we want to go from 0 or 1% to at least 7%. So that's the whole idea where a new things, use of generic. The other thing is on reuse of devices, which has been, yesterday there was a discussion on that, and blood storage policy. Provision should be made for seamless functioning of the hospital. Interpretations were reworked so as to make better understanding, and then formats. We also said that some of the NABH formats which should be revised, because again, they want probably, they need revision because initially we had put a lot of things in place. And then separate standard and guidebook. Many a times as assessors, we take the guidebook, every word as sacrosanct. So now you have a separate standard as well as a guidebook. Standard is what you have to follow. Guidebook tells you how to follow. So I think these are the two important things which was there initially. Then we thought we will merge for different reasons. Now we again thought, because there is to bring in more clarity, and then we have also introduced a third book. And third book is mainly on annexures, important topics, say like end of life care, then on clinical indicators, communication. Some things are new, so where there is an annexure. So the plan also is that third book, annexure, could be revised after a year or so to add in more information. See, we could add more information, but which cannot be a part of a standard. Now again, so this is the new format. That's why you see 3 books now. This is in line with some of the international standards. You take an Australian or something, there are 3 or sometimes even 4 books. In Australian, there is a book on clinical indicator program, because I think they run that. They were one of the first to start. They have separate. So that is something which has been introduced new. So I would like to, end here, but before I end, I cannot, we have to, as part of NABH and as part of the technical committee, behalf of all my members, I would like to, acknowledge the assessors and the hospitals for their feedbacks, various committees and their chairs, external faculty and the domain experts, the chairman and the board. There were times when we were doing our work, the chairman walked in and just to say if things are fine. And so that made us, that gave us a little real boost. Also the QCI, the leadership from QCI, which has been always supportive. But I think, my special and personal thanks to Dr. Kalra, who sat through every single meeting of ours, where he went through the difficult and the good times along with us and along with his entire team. So before I would also like to thank the entire TC members. So I only represent them. 2 of my other colleagues are also there. There are 10 of them, and I'd like to thank all of them on behalf of them. I would on behalf of I would like to thank them. Now, 4th edition, we feel would be a differentiator. And the other thing is that, this would not have been possible, as I said, but for the unstinted support of the secretariat, along with the CEO, who had made several changes. We had to make several times editions went through. Yes, even now there may be some typographic or spelling things, which we had probably a couple of things could be overlooked. But that we would probably releasing an addendum which would be probably in the website in a short period. So this is in a nutshell what we did for 4th edition. So I thank you for the patient listening. And now I hand over the mic to Dr. Basil, who is the co-chair of the technical committee, to take us through the first 5 chapters.